Welcome to the We Are CC podcast. Thanks for joining us again for episode 18. I'm Tom Crown. You can find me on YouTube at Tom Crown. Voted most likely to be Satoshi by this group of speakers, I think is pretty accurate. They're wrong. Today I'm joined by a legendary crew. The man whose butcher started accepting crypto, but only proof of stake. All right, you got me, man. Mr. Poppy, the man who reminded me that despite how it looks, markets are not in free fall. It actually costs the same, or it actually costs some investors quite a lot. I missed that one, but Mr. is here as well, and a young gentleman, Mr. Oz, that we all have a tip for. Ignore the attractive people in your DMs asking you about your crypto opportunities and trades. They're bots. They're just bots. Let's get on. As always, you can find us at weareccpodcast.buzzsprout.com for all of our previous episodes. They are timeless and beautiful. Go check them out. You can find them on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever podcasts are found. And also, you know what? We've been forgetting to throw this in here. Join us on the cryptocurrency Discord, the official Discord. That's discord.gg/cryptocurrency official. That's about it. I think we have a lot of topics today. So, Poppy, if you want to take it away.
Yes, sir. I like that shout out to Discord. Yeah, don't forget, if you guys love talking about crypto, RCC has an extremely popular and busy Discord. We spend all day there just posting dumb stuff, but occasionally you get a little bit of alpha coming up in there. So as always, I think we're going to start with Bitcoin. And, if you look at the price, it really hasn't changed much past week, Tom. But what has happened? We set a record, right? We got a new record for Bitcoin.
Back records. Yeah. It's funny. These episodes truly are timeless over the last, entire year so far, because we could have just named a price and it would probably have been the exact same price every week. We broke a record back to back. Actually, Bitcoin closed its eighth weekly. I'm losing count. Eighth weekly red candle. The previous record was 6, at least on any major exchange. And so we truly are in this time's different territory. We've never seen this happen before. I think the only thing that we can hold on to as hopium is the last week we didn't have a lower low. It still was a red candle, but it didn't go lower than the week before, and the 7 previous reds did. So maybe bottom confirmed. No, I'm just kidding. Hey, there's some hopium. We need it now, so let's take it.
One of the things we do talk about this a little bit more on the Discord side in the analyst group, but watching the US dollar index, because the most commonly priced pairing for Bitcoin is with US dollar, right? So the market really is kind of driven by its dynamics with the US dollar. And for the first time in a while, the dollar index has been showing a lot of weakness. It's actually fallen from its high. It was almost 105 a week ago. I think it's hovering around 102, which for the dollar index is a big move. And at the same time, I don't know if you guys saw, the euro it's waking up a little bit, showing a little bit of spunk. I don't know if you guys been following the news. You saw the news from the ECB.
I have not followed the news, but I've been following the charts. Yeah, the euro really cleanly bounced against the dollar. When was that? May 10th, May 11th. And it had been, I would say, in free fall up until that point. It really did trade almost directly down at about December of last year. I've seen a little bounce here, and the dollar, is a basket of currencies, the euro being a heavily weighted part of that calculation, and dollars easing again, heading back down to maybe the 100 level. We'll see what happens there. That hopefully spells some upside for assets and equities, and we could use a little relief, right?
Yeah, just a little bit. And that's the thing that I'm watching a lot right now. So the ECB, which I believe, if I don't butcher this, is the European Central Bank that manages the Eurozone currency. They talked about, combating inflation, and there's going to be a need to raise rates. And that's what's giving the euro a little bit of spunk, I believe. Not being from Europe, I'm a little bit less attached to that news, right? Doesn't hit me. It's not something I always watch, but that's what I believe is playing out. And so in theory, no one really knows, right? A lot of this is kind of unprecedented for crypto. The entire macro market, macroeconomic, geopolitical circumstances that we are in. But that could be something that brings some relief to Bitcoin and to crypto. But also, the other thing I'm watching, and I believe you guys are too, is the tapering. So the Fed has kind of a two-pronged approach to combating inflation, right? First was they're going to be raising rates, which they have been doing since March. And we know with that came a bit more of a dumpage on markets, equities, crypto. But the second part of that is the tapering of the purchasing of securities that they've been doing. So since the start of COVID-19, since March of 2020, this is good to know. The Fed purchased $4.5 trillion worth of Treasury securities and agency mortgage-backed securities. There's a lot of stuff that they bought, and that was to kind of help pull some pressure off of markets, worried that, the markets might crash because of the pandemic. Well, now it's time to, pay that back. So part of this plan for combating inflation is that they're going to start doing the tapering at a rate of about, I think it's going to start at about 30 billion. And then I think it was Config in the Discord said it was going to be up to 90 billion a month eventually, which far exceeds, the past couple cycles when they did tapering. So it's kind of almost anyone's guess what that's going to do. I mean, do you guys have any thoughts on that? I know it's probably going to put a lot of pressure on equities. Do you think crypto might follow? Do we think maybe this could be our destiny to decouple? That would be great.
Well, I'm the decouple guy, right? So
take it, Mr. Mister.
Oh no, I was just going to say I'm the guy always hoping for that decoupling event, right? And if anything, with the Doxy where it is now and the upside down market with respect to the Treasury holdings, I think if anything, we're setting up for that decoupling event. But I don't want to make that as a prediction. But yeah, fingers crossed, definitely.
That makes sense. I mean, the Fed certainly weren't buying Bitcoin. They were bailing Bitcoin out. Yeah, that's actually a testament that we probably should all keep in the back of our minds is stocks got bailed out to the tune of an amount that didn't even really exist before the bailout. Now, they have to pay the piper back. Crypto weathered through that whole event, the same event, without that cushion. And maybe, I think realistically or logically, to see some kind of decoupling event would be not that crazy.
Not that crazy.
No, and that's a great point too. We didn't get a bail. Now, granted, there's certainly some events that would have warranted a bailout, like Luna, right? If that was traditional finance, that was a bank. I'm sure that there would have been FDIC insured, government insurance on that. There would have been some sort of possible bailout. There wasn't, right? But to the rest of the market, to Bitcoin, we'll use Bitcoin as a proxy for the larger market. Bitcoin One has outperformed a lot of equities. There's a lot of stocks. There's a lot of the market is down worse than Bitcoin. And then two, no one bailed out Bitcoin. No one stepped in and purchased trillions of dollars of Bitcoin to keep it from dumping. So, all things considered, I feel pretty good about how things have played out so far.
Yeah, and let's not forget, on top of that 4.5 trillion, right? We just hit actually the fourth back-to-back record in terms of another Fed program called the reverse repo purchase program. And it's basically a facility that allows, banks and institutions that are literally swimming in cash. I guess not literally, but, they have so much cash on hand.
Scrooge McDuck style.
Yeah, maybe Scrooge McDuck style, right? That they are essentially using this Fed program to offload cash overnight. And it helps the Fed pretty much manage liquidity in the system. But they hit a new record on that one too, $2 trillion overnight. But that's the fourth record to be broken on that one. So it's interesting times for sure. We're seeing record amounts of liquidity. We're seeing interesting market behavior. What does it all mean? I don't want to go past that, but I do think it's interesting that we're seeing a lot of these records and a lot of market behavior that, qualifies as first time we've seen these kinds of things.
Yeah, this is going to be a case of as you guys make decisions about where you want to invest, I would not look at just one single source, not one single news source, not one single analyst. I would look at multiple things to really decide, hey, do I want to pull the trigger and buy something here, invest in something here, whatever it may be, not just crypto, because there is a lot of things that are really kind of unprecedented here that may not go the way a lot of analysts expect. And speaking of, the next item in our agenda, I didn't do that on purpose. Next item was to talk about how when you look at things like Twitter, when you look at things like the news or CoinDesk or whatever you use to get information about the market from, be very careful in trusting the big names out there, because oftentimes, and I want to say especially like funds, banks, venture capitalists, they do not have your best interest in mind. And sometimes their best interest is to keep you pointed in the wrong direction. So the perfect example here, is Guggenheim, is a large investment fund. They manage over $250 billion in assets. So you might say that they know a few things about investing, and they're probably pretty good at it. Now, and this is just one example. I could point to many examples. This is just the easy one because they just hit the news again today. So these are the guys. I'm gonna pop quiz on Oz because he's been too quiet. Oz, when we were at 60K, what do you think their price prediction was for Bitcoin?
60K. I'd say probably 100K. 100K.
That would be a fair one. That'd be fair. No, they said 600,000. All right. So when we
Dang,
when we were
there compared to them.
Yeah, that was last spring. So last summer when we were at around 30K, what do you think their prediction was?
I mean, price only goes up, so 60K?
No, 10K. So, yeah, they were on the wrong side there. So again, I think
all-time high on that one, right?
and we made an all-time high on that one. Yes. And actually, shout out, I'll never forget this, Tom Crown, because we do this weekly contest where we try to predict the weekly close price of Bitcoin. And I remember that week because it was like peak negative sentiment. Everyone was predicting like doom. And Tom Crown comes in with this, like, I forget you said, like, this is like bullish prediction that no one believed. Like people were making fun of you for the next week. And then we hit it. And it was, I don't know, it was just great.
They have maybe like 40s or something. That was at like, I don't know. I don't remember either, but I remember how triggered everyone was by it. They're like, no, you're wrong. That's crazy. And then it happened. And I was just like, wash the hands clean, walk away.
Yeah, you need that. Yeah, the exploding building behind you as you walk off. Put the shades on. So
push that shoulder off, Tom.
Yeah. So they made a prediction, though. Guggenheim made another prediction. They said, I think today or in this week, they said 8K is their new prediction.
Perfect.
So
we're going to 70.
It's got to be the moon.
Lock it in.
Yeah, 8K. So, and that's all to say. You know what? It's never impossible. These are unprecedented times. 8 weeks red, maybe 8Ks in the making, but I really, truly doubt it. And I did put a note in there just to say, there's others. Last year, I used to spend a lot of time watching what JP Morgan was saying and kind of using that as a counter indication. There was early in 2021 when they were talking about that 100K Bitcoin, but we know how that played out. So this is our least favorite topic, but one that we have to cover: UST, Terra, Luna, and all of that jazz. I think, again, we said this last week, but I really want to commend the community. A lot of people, probably those listening in, lost money in that meltdown. And, there's so many of these kinds of tragedies in crypto. We'll call it that because some people lose their life savings. Some people lose a lot. But the space continues to march on towards that inevitability of Web3, of everything that goes back to Satoshi's vision. We keep marching on. I do hope that they find a compensation plan or restructure or something to help as many people as possible. But I don't know if you guys have seen the news. As of today, I believe the Korean police, they're asking exchanges to freeze Luna Foundation funds or to keep them from withdrawing funds. I don't know what that means for any sort of restructuring plan or forking plan, but it's probably not a good one.
Yeah, didn't the Korean version of the feds, I guess their Congress or something, aren't they launching an investigation as well? Like they're asking them to appear to kind of explain what went down. I think that's interesting is to see it's not just the U.S. regulators, right? It's everywhere. People are the regulators really are paying attention now, and if they weren't before, they are definitely zeroed in on UST right now, which is an interesting thing to see.
They're waiting for that like final "told you so." Like, oh, gotcha. So they've been waiting.
Well, Korean.
Mm-hmm. No, I was just going to say, it's really, I think, apropos that you mentioned the whole FDIC thing at the top of the podcast there, Pat. When the reason the FDIC even became a thing, the reason it came into existence was in the early days of financial markets that we call traditional finance now. It was the Wild West. We call crypto and DeFi the Wild West, but, finance was the Wild West back in the day. And banks would fail, and there were scammy banks left and right, and investors were getting fleeced, and so over time, enough people got harmed, and you had the pushback from the regulators, and they put these protections in place, these safeguards, right, like the FDIC that ensures your deposits up to $100,000 US, right? Those were a direct result of massive failures. So with the scrutiny that Luna Foundation Guard, that Do Kwon is facing right now from multiple regulators on multiple fronts, I think we're going to really see something come out of this. I can't see the attention it's getting right now and not see something come out of it, basically.
Yeah, it's just too much money to ignore. It's one thing when you have, I don't know, 10, 20, $30 million hack or rug. Those are serious, but they hardly compare to what was it, tens of billions? Is that how much? I can't even remember
It was a huge amount.
Tens of billions, yeah.
Yeah, that's going to catch a few people's attention. I'm pretty sure Do Kwon is sweating a little bit. I know he's also now under investigation for tax evasion, which is every presumably billionaire's worst nightmare after a potential financial crime was committed by them or their organization.
It wasn't a small amount either. I think it was something like 80 million you had to pay in taxes.
Yeah, that's where they're really going to get him too. In the end, it's going to be the taxes on like the realized or unreal. The U.S. is kind of the watchdog when it comes to money, but there are other countries that are really kind of on that same level. Like South Korea is very, very not to be messed with when it comes to money. They don't like money leaving the country. Sure, they're not fans of crypto in that sense for that reason.
Mm-hmm.
Historically, been pretty interesting in that department.
I think there's a lot of people. That's like one of those. That's one of those things that they use when they can't get you on something else.
Yep.
If they think you did something like, was that how they got that famous? Yeah, Al Capone. That's yeah. Thank you. Read my mind, Tom Crown. Yeah. You can never escape the tax man. You might escape the FBI, the police, everyone else, but the IRS is going to get you.
So, does he even have 80 million to pay a tax bill?
Didn't he bet someone 10 million that Luna would be like $80 and?
Oh yeah,
he's really just eating it red every direction.
Yeah, wasn't it Colby or one of the famous guys on Twitter? I forget which one was the custodial. Yeah, he was a custodial agent for that bet. I'm not sure what he's going to do with it now. I feel like he should just donate it to the Luna investors.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
Yeah, then Do Kwon's not going to go for that, man.
I read something.
I'm sure he's got money.
True, but they said somewhere that they could like remedy. It was like all the small wallets involved with UST, like 99% of the total wallets, pretty easily. And I thought that would be a really cool thing to do. I think it would at least just show like a good intention.
Yeah, it would. I think it was a number of like the wallets under $900,000-ish in size are the ones that they could compensate either entirely or mostly. Which actually the goodness in what's happened since then is that a lot of organizations have come out and talked about similar things. Binance and CZ also mentioned, hey, if something ever happened and Binance became insolvent or something happened to it, that they would reimburse the individual investors using the exchange before they would reimburse their shareholders. And
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Coinbase.
Cough.
Yeah, well, the rate that coin is going, I don't know.
To reimburse anything. Of course, it's one thing to say that and another altogether to do it. So, I would like to believe it. I would like to believe it.
True.
I choose to actually.
I have mixed feelings about Binance. I know in the past they've done a little bit to kind of skirt regulations, but on the other, maybe it's a necessary evil to grow the space. In any case, they are the market leader for exchanges, and I think that was a respectable position to take, being in that position. So let's go into something a little more fun. This to me, this is like the great mystery of this week, and perhaps one of the more interesting things to happen in the NFT space, in my opinion, ever. So for those who haven't followed this, in the past couple days, there's a project that launched just seemingly out of nowhere. There's no brand or company that anyone has identified that's behind it. There's no real names. It doesn't even have a Discord. It didn't have marketing, and it was a free mint. And it's the number one traded project in the past 48 hours. Just all of that I just said alone stands out as WTF, as just so unusual. We've never seen this before. The project's called, and this isn't financial advice. This isn't say go out and buy it. I mean, it could go to zero. It could be a rug pull. We don't know who's behind it. We really don't. But it's really funny to watch. So the project's called Goblintown. And for those who don't know, Goblintown is slang for bear market. It's a term, especially a lot of the guys and ladies in crypto Twitter like to use. Welcome to Goblintown. So it's basically just a bunch of art of 10K collection of goblins. And you can check it out. I put some art in there for you guys. I mean, what do you think? It's pretty unique art, right? I got a kick out of it.
It's beautiful.
It's simultaneously ugly and beautiful all at once. Yeah. But the thing that's really entertaining about it, besides no one knowing who the heck these guys are, is that they've been just trolling the entire space. For example, and I put the picture in there for you guys if you scroll down a little bit, when they hit the top of the OpenSea chart for trading, the most traded project, they overtook Otherdeed, the metaverse for Yuga for the Bored Apes. When they overtook them as the number one traded, they posted a picture of a goblin taking a number one on Otherdeed. And if I need to explain to you what a number one is, it's when you use the restroom.
It's the opposite of a number two.
Yeah, it's the opposite of a number two. And if that doesn't translate to your particular version of English, you can always message me and I'll explain it somewhere where I'm not being recorded. But in any case, just mega trolling. And then they had a thing where they tagged Beeple and he responded, and they tagged Budweiser beer. But again, no one knows who these guys are. So if you can figure it out, if you can figure it out, I mean, feel free to dig around. There's little clues and stuff. I feel like
it's not us. There's your first hint.
Yeah, we're not that smart.
Throw them off the trail.
Yeah. No, it's just everyone's trying to figure out who these guys are. I don't know. They're dominating. They're dominating the NFT charts. They're trending in Twitter, and it's complete mystery. So, anyways, that's a lot of fun. For once, there's actually something interesting going on NFTs that isn't backed, at least so far, by massive marketing from some corporate VC entity. For that, I'm pretty down. I saw you like my comment earlier in the week, Tom Crown. I said something along the lines of, I look forward to the phase of the NFT market where the popular stuff isn't whatever's backed by the, corporate and VC, investors. Because there's a lot of really good, talented artists and projects out there that just don't get any attention.
Yes, it was the Bears from like 2020 making their comeback here with NFTs. Wild speculation.
Yeah. So, also on an NFT note, so let's go to one of the more popular projects, Azuki's. And this is one whose art actually I really like. I don't own any. I'm not saying go buy them either. But it seems like, especially right now, I've noticed there's a lot of drama in the NFT space. See different projects kind of tearing each other down. You see a lot of rumor mills. I'm not even getting into some of the wild stuff I've seen out there. There's a lot of focus on founders and their backgrounds. So, but in the case of the Azuki stuff, it looks like it's pretty much all confirmed. So I feel like it's worth sharing just to kind of make you more informed. So for those who don't know, Azukis are this anime styled inspired art that kind of kicked off this trend within NFTs where you do these anime inspired PFPs. It was as high as 30 ETH just a month and a half ago. Not even a few weeks. Yeah, a few weeks ago. But then it dropped down to as low as 80 ETH. So what caused this meltdown? I don't know if you guys heard about this. The founder admitted to rugging 3 projects, basically. Twice, and then what makes it even better is he rugged these twice as a man and once as a woman. And how did he do this?
Class.
He found ways to make it not just rugging, but to make it even worse. And so this is an industry where, and we were talking about this before the podcast started, this is an industry where women only make up 15%, right? And we really want to be aware of the inclusiveness of the space. It's not, it would just be more fun when you have more diversity, right? We don't want it to be like a bro party, but at the same time, going and pretending to be a woman to launch or manage a project with the whole vibe of being, woman owned. It's just, I feel like that's pushing it a little bit. It's one thing to rug, but yeah. So
are we saying that if you rug under the gender you identify with, it's less bad? Yes. Is that what we're saying? Okay, gotcha. Just want to be clear.
As long as you identify with it, it's good.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how it all plays out. But yeah, at least be honest about whatever it is.
At least be honest about your scam.
Okay. Person rug pools, but you got to be honest, guys.
Yeah. There's a little honesty from these scammers. That's all
I think it's wild that the one that he got away with it so many times, like he just kind of abandoned. I don't know that he's like intentionally rugged, I don't know all the details, but it sounds like he kind of gave up on these other ones. And then the way he framed it, the founder's named Zagabond, I guess.
Beautiful name.
He was like, hey, I used what I learned from those projects to make just a successful one. Because Azuki is highly successful. In fact, I think they just did a drop of jackets, if I remember right. I could be misspeaking, but I thought I saw a thing where they can redeem that for real life jackets, which is kind of a cool idea. Not the first time I've seen that, but it's a cool idea. I know that there's been other projects, but there was the Ethereum socks. I think you could redeem for the real socks. Weren't those worth
utility.
Like? What's that?
That's real utility.
Don't be socks.
Yeah, but I think they were like tens of thousands of dollars. So how much utility? This would be pretty good socks, man. And then I know there's actually another one out of RCC Manifest. They were doing one where they had these hoodies that were pretty cool. I didn't try redeeming it. I'm not sure where that's at actually, but one of our own did that. So again, not saying buy any of this stuff, but anyways, it's been done before, right? But it's still cool. So anyways, leave it up to you. There's a bit of a discount on Azuki's because of that, but yeah, that's pretty rough. If I was Zagabond, my personal opinion, step away, man. Take a break, get away disassociate from the project and let someone else take over because that's just awkward to me. I wouldn't stay with a project.
What if he's pretending to be a goblin right now? Dun, dun.
He might be if he is that good. Honestly, the trolling by the Goblintown account is highly impressive. You guys really got to check it out. It's just funny. You don't even have to buy anything. Just check it out. So the next item on here, this is one. If you spent any time in the space, you guys have probably seen someone flex a little bit, right? Come on, I know you've seen it. Like Oz, you sit in Discord. I mean, half of the chat consists of people showing their profit and loss. Which is always profit. No one ever loses. No one ever. I can tell you this. If you guys are listening, every single person in the RCC Discord is 100% accurate in their trades. Just want to put that out there. So,
really,
a few years ago, this rich kid, I don't remember the details of the court case, but his lawyer had argued that he was afflicted by something called affluenza. And it's a combination of the flu and affluence, which is just a word for being rich, basically. And they basically said that, is the condition of his upbringing and his lifestyle that he was kind of out of touch with, normal people stuff that led him to committing crimes that he wouldn't have done if he was just a poor person like the rest of us. Interesting defense strategy. I think he got away with that. Do you guys remember that trial?
I'm sure he did. It sounds about right.
Sounds like
I'm
a rich
too
person.
rich to go to jail. Innocent.
You're rich, yeah. You're off the hook, sir. I'm sorry for wasting your time. So, anyways, I bring that up because I'm not going to name the guy. He wrote me later and was like, your obsession with people you don't know or something's unhealthy. I'm just like, but this guy was too much of being too much of a, like I had to share this. So basically this guy wrote on Twitter in his words, and he was serious from what I can gather. And from all the arguments that followed between him and basically everyone on Twitter, he said, if you're rocking a profile picture under $100,000, don't tag me. Don't share your opinion on my wall. I don't care what you have to say. Reality is you need to work harder, move out of your mom's basement, stack ETH and Sol, buy a few real profile pictures, then share your opinion.
Have a rich family.
And he was serious. Yeah, he did apologize a few days later. But yeah, what's your first thought, guys, when you hear this?
Sounds like a lovely guy.
Throw him back to court.
It's one thing to flex, but I gotta say, like, man, when you're talking, I mean, the part that really got to me was, hey, you need to work harder. The hardest working people I meet in this space aren't the millionaire founders of these big giga DeFi NFT projects. It's like the day-to-day grind of people, the little guys that you're not thinking of, maybe the engineers on a project or the moderators in a project or the artists that quite frequently go unattributed or attributed in a way that you probably don't even remember their name. Like, go ahead and try and guess the artists that worked on Bored Apes. Anyone? I bet no one knows.
Also,
right?
Nope.
No. Yeah, Picasso. Yeah. That's my point, right? There's a lot of people working behind the scenes to make all these projects work and make them successful. Name a Bitcoin engineer that, isn't one of the famous personalities, or Ethereum, someone that isn't Vitalik. There's so many hundreds, thousands of people working behind the scenes and working long hours. Heck, and I'm not gonna well, yeah, I'll put it out there. Like Tom Crown, like people don't realize how much work you put in, right, on a day-to-day basis. I know from behind the scenes since I've gotten to know you, I'm like, this dude's grinding from morning to night, right, to put out content, to talk to people, to help them trade. And I'm like, and I got so much respect for that, right? Which is why I invited you to. I was like, hey, we got to have this guy on here. All he does is talk about the market. All he does is help people trade, and I think it's great. He's going to contribute a lot, right? And you do.
I'm not a billionaire.
And you're not a millionaire, right? But people probably don't think that, because I know there's some guys, and I'm not saying I'm not digging on BitBoy, but he does put out that perception with his pictures of him and his Gucci sitting on a Lambo. He kind of puts that perception out that everyone must be a giga millionaire, right? But that's not the case. I think most mostly crypto is just a working Joe's kind of space. You're a program manager, you're an engineer or whatever, right? Anyways, off my soapbox, but Mister, I know you're being quiet, but you're the guy that's been working in DeFi the longest on here. You've been working in the space in Web3 space. What are your thoughts when you see something like that? Like, I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, I definitely, the behind the scenes work is hard, right? And being responsible for funds, user funds, being responsible for, everyone's well-being, not just investors, but even the team that's working on the project it's a tough spot to be. It's a lot of hard work, and it's a lot of stress, and for damn sure I don't have a Lambo, right? Even if I was at that point, I don't think I'd be one of those. But I think there is that misconception that it is just kind of a playground, and while it is fun and new and super interesting, there's a lot of really unrecognized and dare I go even further and say just unappreciated work that happens behind the scenes. That is what you want to look for, I think, in a project. You don't want to look for the guys that are talking about, the Lambos that they're maybe even leasing. Sorry, I just had to put that out there, a little dig. But it's an interesting space for sure. It's a lot of hard work, a lot of behind the scenes for sure.
Yeah. So that's a good point. When you're looking at investing, I think we had a note somewhere in this massive agenda. I always put too much in here for us to talk about, but when you're looking, of course, we always recommend not financial advice, but you go heavy right into Bitcoin, Ethereum, because they're market leaders, less volatility, just a little bit safer. But when you're looking at some of these altcoins, there's actually a lot of good projects out there, but make sure you pick the right one, with the active team, because when the market's down like this, that's going to tell you exactly which projects are worth investing in. If the team is active, if the community is active, if the team's trying really, really hard to keep things going and to stay upbeat and to keep you focused on the future roadmap, that might be maybe the project to invest in. If they're kind of unavailable, you're not seeing them talk, there's no one around, man, just get out of it. Don't waste your time on something that's kind of like half dead already. Because if it's dead now, it's not going to be alive in a month.
Not in this market.
No.
But that's the value play, right? You're essentially talking about, if we're in the traditional stocks, right? We'd be looking at value plays right now, especially when blood is in the streets. That's when wealth gets created, right? You can pick up for very cheap and really invest in projects, equities, what have you, that you believe in. But, looking at it in terms of active building through a bear market, active team, and engaged community, those are value metrics, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's exactly right. If you're going to be smart about investing, and we have seen this, the crypto space has matured infinitely from earlier cycles. Tom, you've been around the longest. You probably know where people, last cycle or before, were they really sitting there talking about the Fed and rates and the US dollar index versus euro versus whatever? I mean, how has that changed in the past, 5-6 years?
Not in the same way. It was more doomy, gloomy, apocalypsy, like waiting for everything to crash. But I think there was less technical talk on that side, more of the concept of infinite dollar, finite Bitcoin. We're going to see everything implode eventually.
Yeah, Bitcoin's only died a few thousand times in the past 10 years.
Yeah. This one for real though, right?
So this is your reminder. We talked about this maybe a month ago, but Grayscale needs your help. This is important. If you guys got a few minutes, you ladies got a few minutes, please, go ahead and Google it, look it up. Grayscale, the government, basically the US government's going to make a decision, the SEC, on whether or not they will approve Grayscale's application to turn its Bitcoin trust into a spot ETF. We all want this for various reasons, I believe. Maybe there's some detractors that don't. But it will basically make Bitcoin more accessible to the average investor, to the non-crypto natives, to the boomers who we would love to have in the space. But Grayscale's been ramping up their advertising, even in places like Washington, D.C., New York City recently. And they have a website that you can go to, and it can help you respond to, or show your support to the U.S. government on that. So I think they have 2,600 comments. I'm sure we can add a few hundred to that. So let's go. Let's get it out there. I would love an ETF.
I'm
Just to
super
add as
nervous
well.
about a spot ETF, to be honest.
What's that?
I'm super nervous about a spot ETF coming online for the US. I
Are you?
I can't technically justify that. But it just scares me when you open the doors to all the derivatives that you can get off of a spot ETF, with the trillions of basically too much liquidity that's in the system right now. Who knows what that's going to do? I know the popular opinion is, for everybody to want that spot ETF, but just looking at it from like a super cynical viewpoint, I'm not so sure it could be that, nothing but good that everybody's expecting.
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about liquidity? Are you talking about how whales and big funds already have problems with moving large amounts of funds around the space?
No, just how much liquidity, how many dollars can be thrown at the derivatives off of a spot ETF, that could be used to essentially drive price action in one direction or the other. And for me, I'm sitting here, as much as institutions are kind of warming up, and you see the JP Morgan prediction of 100,000, you see all these different predictions of 6-figure Bitcoin price. For every one of those institutions, there's plenty of institutions out there that are still super salty, man. And I don't know if that's going to be a good thing for Bitcoin price. But hey, I'm always the contrarian guy. I'm always that guy. So who knows?
We need that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a fair point. I mean, we have a futures ETF already, and who's to say? I mean, that's been kind of my thought all along too. When you watch it, when you just look at a chart of the past couple of years, and you see that double top in the 60s, and it just doesn't feel like a traditional crypto cycle, especially when there was so much, just so much bullishness injected into the system by the Fed. You feel like it should have gone a little bit higher, and that's my gut feeling. But it was just so perfectly played out as a double top. Maybe they're already trying to play those games, just like they do with other things like silver market, gold market, and pretty much everything else. I mean, these are the same guys that are talking about, the same banks that are talking about Bitcoin are the same ones that got fined $1 billion. Was it JP Morgan that was fined $1 billion for manipulating silver? Can't remember. Like a year ago?
There's a bunch of banks, I think.
Yeah, there's definitely more than one. Yeah, but it was a big one that caught my attention. So, these same players come into crypto. I know some people like to sit on the side and say market manipulation is FUD or it's a meme. It's pretty well confirmed, in my opinion. That doesn't mean that it's happening right now in Bitcoin or that it's going to happen, but it's in other speculative markets. It definitely happens. You can
there's that, what is that cliche that I guess that's not a cliche, but the saying of past performance does not guarantee future returns. I think kind of a take on that is, past behavior does definitely make it very likely of future behavior. So when we see this time and time again, I don't think it's going to change. And when you overlay that behavior on top of a market, let's take Bitcoin, let's take cryptos in general. It's under 2 trillion. I mean, what are we at now? Like barely above 1 trillion total market capitalization. That only represents a fraction of the cash that's in the system right now, right? That these institutions are holding. So when you have that kind of a dynamic, I think there is potential for manipulation, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure if there's just so much money in the system. I don't know if there's a reasonable way to prevent that in the long run. I mean, maybe it's just an inevitability that, a small market like where crypto is right now, maybe in 30, 40 years, if crypto's still around, Bitcoin's still around, and we achieve all the visions we thought we would, albeit with maybe a little bit of manipulation along the way, we're still going to be so small. I mean, even at a few trillion, we're still fairly easy to manipulate for a lot of these guys.
But it's still early. That's the one thing. So let me take my curmudgeon boomer hat off for a second. and to be clear, right? I mean, I may take these contrarian views, but I am a core believer, and I'm I guess a recovering maximalist. Maybe you could call me that. But
well, and if you look at the past cycle, though, even if they're manipulating it, they still need periods of it going up, right? So, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever they're up to, you're still going to have opportunity here. And not just that, but there's a lot of independent projects that will, I believe, be able to move in, decouple from the Bitcoin dependence. I think, I'm sure some Bitcoin maximalists will hate me for saying this, but I do think that over time, Bitcoin's dominance over the market is going to just continue to trend down. It just can't continue to remain the sole flag bearer of the space when there's so many, meaningful projects with real utility, with real corporate massive backing out there growing and innovating and developing. It's just kind of, to me, it's an inevitability, right? And as that happens, as projects may move more independent, kind of like a stock, which I guess brings up the comparison to securities and stuff. But, I think that's a possibility. So let's talk about Phantom. Phantom is one of those layer ones, had a little bit of a honeymoon period where it was the superstar in the space like all the other layer ones. And then it had a really bad time following Andre, I don't know how to say his last name. Cronier, maybe. Apologize if I say that wrong. So when Andre, who's a big basically celebrity dev project lead in the DeFi space, when he left, basically everything he was working on tanked. I think is the best way to explain it, right? We did cover that at the time. Rumors are that he's returning with an inflow of... Yeah, there's an inflow of a lot of Phantom to his wallets, and he put a proposal up to contend with the potential depegging of the FUSD, which I assume is the Phantom USD. And, they're also trying to alleviate that and mitigate that by reminding everyone that it's kind of like DAI and some of these others. It's an over collateralized stablecoin. It's not a algorithmically managed stablecoin like UST. So, yeah, that's a possibility.
So he's going to pull a Michael Jordan over here? That'd be interesting.
He's done that a couple of times, though, I believe. I think he's quit a couple of times and come back. He's kind of, at this point, has a reputation for being both brilliant and a little bit volatile. Maybe he's a little bit like Bitcoin.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Well, let's see him come back. It'd be great. He's a great innovator, regardless of whatever the narratives around him are right now. Mm-hmm. Responsibility to the space and, responsible coding and what have you. But, he's, there is a reason why he's considered kind of the godfather of DeFi, right? And I think that just kind of speaks to the need for, eccentric personalities in all spaces, right? They tend to drive a lot of that. Because you got to be a little bit crazy sometimes to do some of these things, right?
Well, look at everyone's, the project that keeps trending, regardless of market conditions, regardless of price action, regardless of anything else, is Cardano. And I want to attribute a lot of that to Charles Hoskinson, that guy who's I guess he's the project lead for Cardano, right? He's pretty vocal on Twitter. He's pretty popular on social media. The guy is interesting, maybe a little unusual to say the least. But when you look at the fundamentals of semantics around Cardano, regardless of its price action, it's always trending. It's phenomenal. I got to give it credit. If you measured price based on how popular a platform or protocol was in social media, I'm sure Cardano would be like a top 3. It's, it just always impresses me. But yeah, that's there's a thing. There's something to be said out there for having a charismatic or interesting or even non-charismatic but interesting and visible leader of a project or protocol. I think it kind of endears people to it, right? Puts a human face to it, even if the human face is a little bit flawed. But that also makes Bitcoin a little interesting, right? Having that anonymous founder.
Oh yeah, there's no face there. Who do they associate it with?
Yeah, unless one of those guys are lying. I know they always use that one. I forget the guy's name. He's denied it.
Craig Wright. Oh,
No.
You're saying
It's the little Asian guy, isn't it?
No. Yeah, Craig Wright claims in court that he is Satoshi. I'm just going to say, Craig, you come on the podcast. You can put up your case. I'm not sure anything you've said or done so far has convinced me that you are Satoshi, not even a little. But that's not official or legal opinion for me, by the way. Please don't sue me. Yeah, no, there's an Asian gentleman who's denied it repeatedly. I think he's like an engineer. He's worked on financial stuff in the past. And so it kind of made sense at the time. But yeah, he's very popular to be used as Satoshi. I don't remember his name and I apologize.
Dorian Nakamoto, I remember.
Is that it? Yeah, that might be right because his name's like partially similar too.
Yeah, that's why all the newspapers like love to show him as Satoshi. Even last year I was seeing publications use him as the image, which is kind of weird.
Everywhere. Yeah, everywhere. Even if he's not, he's become the unofficial de facto Satoshi face. So I guess congratulations. You've become the, face of
De facto.
the most infamous, mysterious man in history. I don't know. I mean, I can't think of anyone that's as mysterious as Satoshi. Think about what he's created. I mean, people probably, it's easy to just kind of overlook and forget. It's been a decade since we've heard from Satoshi. But the guy created a multi-trillion-dollar financial apparatus ecosystem, largely decentralized, separate of traditional economic and financial services. I mean, and this happened all within the space of a decade. I mean, just thinking about that blows my mind. It's incredible. And how much of this happened after he was gone and mysteriously just not around. It's
started
wild.
something, but you let it grow. It's kind of crazy when you think about it.
It is crazy. I don't think enough people talk about it. I mean, honestly, it should be like in textbooks talking about, kind of a financial revolution. How to start it. Here you go. Just do what Satoshi did, I guess.
I'm Satoshi, guys. Sorry for keeping the secret so long.
Yeah, I wish you were, because I would be really famous now. So, yeah, we're getting towards the end. We only got a couple more things. We'll move into the Q&A here. Can I say that this has been the biggest disappointment for me, especially in the NFT space, if you're an NFT guy? In fact, I'm going to just post it to you, Mister, because I know you're not active in NFT space. What is the biggest disappointment for the past year in the NFT space?
I mean, the eighth land.
Other deed, other side.
Yeah, that's what pops into my
I love a deed.
Well, you also like Sandbox, and I'm more of an NFT guy, so I know, you're just being contrary to me.
Well, what do you think? What's your biggest disappointment in the NFT space, Pat?
Coinbase, the Coinbase NFT marketplace.
Such a flop.
Dude, I got nothing to say to that. The whole space was so hyped about that, thinking, boy, the wait list for Coinbase NFTs for months. We were waiting for months to get in there. We're waiting for the launch. And it just flopped. I think it is active now, and I had some cool ideas. I like the social media aspect, but according to this unofficial report, Coinbase hasn't officially reported this. It had fewer than 150 users the first day open to public. Now, that may have been because the wait list wasn't fully realized. I don't know, but that's pretty bad. It's still, I think as of this was maybe a week and a half ago, it had less than 1,300 total users, which that seems a little bit low. I think maybe the number is slightly off because of the wait list, but still, there's no denying that the Coinbase NFT marketplace has basically been forgotten about at this point. And a lot of people thought it was going to be the catalyst for a new NFT bull market. But Coinbase is really disappointed here. Coinbase, if you're listening, please get your crap together. We'd love to see that actually compete with OpenSea, because we're dying for a competitor to OpenSea.
GameStop. I said that a few weeks ago. GameStop. Don't forget GameStop.
Well, GameStop launched their wallet, I think today. Have you checked it out, sir?
I have not.
Yeah, I need to try it out. I just want to see. I think it's built on Loopring. There are some advantages to having that integration with a layer 2. Or is Loopring a layer 2 or just competing layer 1? Actually, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think they use Loopring for L2s. Yeah.
Well, it's something. It's cheaper than ETH, but there's some sort of in-house support for that, which potentially makes it a little bit cheaper to contend with NFTs. But yeah, I guess we'll report back next week or maybe the week after on GameStop and see how that wallet's doing. But I kind of have a suspicion it's not going to exactly gain a big audience. Not yet. Now, this will be the exception. If they can start to do something where, say, video game companies, like traditional gaming companies, start to do real proper like DLC, maybe like DLC in the form of NFTs or cosmetics in the form of NFTs, that would be a game changer. Like, imagine if, what's a popular game? I don't know, Oz, you're the Zoomer crowd, man. What do Zoomers play these days?
Pretty much just CSGO, I think, still.
That's it. That game's as old as me, man.
It's still a good game.
Man, I can't believe people still play that. Yeah, okay. So let's say CSGO skins. You get some skins for your knives or your guns or whatever, and then GameStop makes them tradables, NFTs, like exclusive, right? That would be a big deal. People might jump on that then. Because I know I got a lot of games I play, and there's a lot of stuff I've paid for over the years. I would kill to be able to sell it. But the best you can do is like Steam Marketplace, which you just get Steam credits, I think. I don't think you can get like cash for it.
Yeah, Steam Marketplace is a bit of a nightmare to use. You get like 70 cents for a skin, and then it's practically just stuck there.
Yeah. Yeah, so have a good week, everyone. Trade safely. There's probably some volatility coming up. Looks like we're coming I would suspect we're coming up to the end of this current pattern. There may be a breakout. Could be up, could be down, as always. Have a good week. Have a good week. Have a good week. Have a good week. Have a good week.